فاعلم أنه لا إله إلا الله.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Alhamdulillah, today we have 3, inshallah, from the asma of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala we will be covering. And these 3 are very important because they are usually the ones that are misunderstood. Many of the asma al-husna are not understood by the people. But these 3, all 3 of them have certain amounts of misunderstandings that the people have. So I want to, inshallah, really try to focus on them. The first one, and this is the 39th in the tartib that we are using, and as I said, there is no tartib that is wadih from the Qur'an or ahadith, so this is just how you learn. But from the tartib we've been using, it is number 39, which is Al-Adheem. Al-Adheem, mashallah, from the beautiful asma al-husna. Many people take it to be the great. Some people take it to be the greatest, without really understanding Adheem. Adheem, from the root word from Ain, Dha and Mim. But there are many different linguistic roots you can look at. And that's why there is khilaf of some ulama about the exact root that Adheem comes from, and the exact meaning. What we do know from the ulama of Islam, that Azama, this is the root that is best described with kasratul ayn. Izama, this becomes khilaf al-sighar, yani sighara, to show smallness, Azama, to show greatness. Azuma bil-dhammatul dha, this is also there. Ya'zamu izaman, this is all from the sarf of Azama. Putting it all together, linguistically, what is the meaning of the root word? Ain, Dha, Mim, whichever form we use it in. It is to show greatness or the greater than aspect of it, meaning greater than anybody else. A'zam, great. Azim, greater than that. Again, an ism mubalagha. What is the shari'i aspect of al-Adheem as it has to do with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? One is something that we find as a linguistic meaning. But then there is the shari'i meaning in aqidah as it has to do with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for this I will quote from one of the early great scholars of Islam, Ibn al-Qayyim. Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah, one of the greatest scholars in explaining the Asma al-Husna. Ibn al-Qayyim, he writes that when it is a haqq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Al-Adheem doesn't just mean great. And it's very important because nowadays we give this reference to many people. And I'm stopping the quote from Al-Qayyim to explain something. For example, sometimes we read somebody say Alexander the Great, or Caesar the Great, or this the great, or that, or the greatest football player, or the greatest hero, or the greatest basketball player. So you see this sifa being thrown around a lot nowadays. Even in the Muslim countries we say Sikandar Azam, Imam al-Azam, this Azam, that Azam, this Azim Hasti, this great personality. And you have to be very careful because there is a difference when we talk about Al-Adheem. And that's why we should be careful from giving Azma, yani giving the greatness and the titles to people who are makhluk. What does Ibn al-Qayyim say about Al-Adheem? He says this is the one that is the utmost greatness. Yani it is the greatness, Al-Adheem, the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is such that it can never be achieved by the makhluk. That's what Ibn al-Qayyim says, you cannot call anybody Al-Adheem. Why? Because the greatness of the makhluk is always limited. And Ibn al-Qayyim, he continues and he says that it is the utmost greatness, the grandeur, the greatness that is greater than and mightier than anybody else. And he says the makhluk can never reach this. He says even at times, every person will reach some great achievement. Yani somebody may do really good in school, maybe somebody's really good in a certain sport, maybe somebody's really good in memorizing, maybe somebody's really good in wrestling, maybe somebody's really good in any field. They will achieve some greatness. But that greatness is always limited. Ibn al-Qayyim, he gives a beautiful example. He says, if you look at a king may be the greatest authority in his kingdom, but another kingdom, his authority doesn't last. A king may be the greatest authority of that time, but in the time before that his authority wasn't there. And when death and sickness comes to him, or somebody overthrows him, his kingdom is gone. SubhanAllah, we had examples in this ummah. When we talk about the sayings of the Salaf, we should always think about our lives. You know, we had people in this ummah, and I'm not going to mention names, but inshallah you will get it, in certain countries, that thought their authority was unshakable. And they would tell people, why do you read the Qur'an? Instead read my Kitab al-Akhdar. You know, people were, you would see their interview, when their kingdom is toppling, they're finishing, and they're telling the person interviewing, have you read my book, Kitab al-Akhdar? SubhanAllah. You want to compete with the Kitab of Allah? There are people like this, that when their power was at a peak, nobody could question them. Nobody could raise their voice against them. Nobody could say, why are you doing this, and why did you do this, and how did you spend this? You couldn't. There was this terror that they would have upon his people, but that same person, you will see them begging for their life. Why? Because this title of being Adheem, this honor that humans try to give to themselves is fake. It's false. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one who's Al-Adheem. That is why before, after, during have no impact on the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has always been the greatest. There was never a time that Allah wasn't the greatest. And Allah is the greatest. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always be the greatest. He will always be Al-Adheem. The greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it never comes down. And humans, their perfection, their works, their greatness, their power, their authority will only be for a time. Ibn al-Qayyim, he continues, he says that maybe a father or a man will be given authority in his house, but then he has no authority in somebody else's house. SubhanAllah. A king has an authority in his country, but not another country. And then one day that father will be dead, his authority will be gone. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is such that there is no nuzul, there is no coming down of His azma, of His greatness and His quwwah and His power. Ibn al-Qayyim, he continues that Allah's might and power is over everything and everyone at all times. SubhanAllah. The greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is over what? Everything. Nobody else has that. And also everyone. And also at all times. And that's why Ibn al-Qayyim says that Adheem of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is unique only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Adheem upon all of His makhluk, even if the makhluk doesn't recognize it. SubhanAllah. Today you see somebody, he sells out his religion for money. He sells out his religion for pressure. He sells out his religion because he can't stand up for the truth. It's because we don't realize who is Al-Adheem. If we realized this ism of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He is Adheem, that no power, no military, no army, no soldier, no politician, nobody can overpower us. If Al-Adheem is with us, wallahi, nobody can overpower us. If we knew this, it would be enough for us to stand up for the haqq. But this is the problem, that we don't recognize the asma al-husna of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. From the fawaid, from the benefits of this name Al-Adheem. And Ibn al-Qayyim, and I'm quoting from many of his works and summarizing from them. His works are in detail and in depth. But he says something. He said, this is one of the asma of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we use in our salah. You know, when you think of your salah, one of the things, what do you say in ruku'? What do you say in ruku'? Subhana Rabbi Al-Adheem. Al-Adheem is used in ruku'. What is the hukam on saying Subhana Rabbi Al-Adheem in ruku'? Is it fard? It is mustahab? What is the hukam? It's fard. It's from the wajibat of salah. From the things you must do in salah is to say Subhana Rabbi Al-Adheem at minimum 3 times. But if you say it once, the fard is complete. But the minimum complete is 3 times. Although, if you said it once, your salah would still be acceptable, but the minimum complete 3 times. Subhana Rabbi Al-Adheem, again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is being called Al-Adheem here. And Ibn Al-Qayyim Al-Jawziyah, he says, from the fawaid, from the benefits. Why do we do it? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered in the Qur'an. Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam showed it as his example in his life and ordered us to use this dua in ruku'. But from the fawaid, from the benefits that Ibn Al-Qayyim mentions, he says that when the believers used to make ruku', the Quraysh used to make fun of them. The Quraysh, they knew some of salah, but they didn't know it in the way that we know it exactly today. So when in Mecca, the believers would be making ruku', the Quraysh would make fun of it. And this is true today. You know, if any of you have prayed outside, in a park, or in a school, or a university, when you're making ruku', everybody feels weird. When you're making sujood, you feel weird. Because people see this as something strange. So at that time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala legislated a dua to show the perfection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we say subhanallah, meaning that Allah is free from any imperfection. And then He is called your Rabb in this dua. Subhana Rabbi. Rabbi yani my Rabb. The Lord. To show that He is Rububiyyah. And then Al-Adheem. To show the greatness that He is greater than those people that you're afraid from. Those people that are making fun of you. The people who you care so much about that you're making your ruku' faster, or you're ashamed to make your ruku' and sujood. From all of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Adheem. And this is from the fawaid that Ibn Al-Qayyim mentions, that in that time in Mecca, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala legislated this. So the Sahaba, when they were making ruku' and saying this, they no longer cared about the Quraysh. They no longer cared who was looking and who was mocking and who was making fun. And we should be the same way. If it's time for salah, and you don't have any place else except in public, make your salah. Who cares what people think? What's more important, making your salah on time, fulfilling the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or what people at work or in school or in a park would think? And this is something that we don't think about in our salah, and that's why it's a weakness for us. Ibn Al-Qayyim, he also mentioned, that Ibn Rajab has also mentioned this in other places, that this name is also from the names that is a part of a sentence that fills the scales of Ar-Rahman, that is heavy. And the dalil for that is the hadith that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us, it's in Al-Bukhari, kalimatan khafifatan ala al-lisan, wa fi al-rawaya habibatan ila Ar-Rahman, wa thaqilatan fi al-mizan. There is 2 kalimat, 2 sayings that are very light on the tongue, but they are beloved to Ar-Rahman, and they're heavy in the scales on the Day of Judgment. On the Day of Judgment, your scale will not be how much you did, but how heavy is it. You understand the difference? One is somebody does a lot of deeds, but the ikhlas is weak. The khushu' is weak. The proper following the sunnah is weak. Today we see brothers making salah, but many times it's not the salah that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us. You see brothers making salah, but in their mind they're somewhere else. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ told us that somebody will make salah and they will only get half the reward, or a quarter, or a tenth, and so on. Why? Because that deed, even if it's the same 4 rak'ah, but it may only weigh 1 rak'ah, or half a rak'ah, or 1 word. And that is why when we say Subhanallah bihamdihi, that Allah is free from all imperfections, and the hamd, the praises for Him, and Subhanallah al-Adheem, and we say Subhanallah, that Allah is free from all imperfections, and He is Al-Adheem, He is the greatest. When we say this is something heavy in the scales. It fills the scales of Ar-Rahman. When we talk about this, one of the great scholars of our time, and one of my own teachers, when he was mentioning this, he said something beautiful. And he said that when you say Al-Adheem, but you still have the fear of other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have not understood this ism of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you say Al-Adheem, you should know that there is no power, that there is no strength, there is no ability above that of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No matter how great a civilization may be, no matter how strong an army may be, no matter how advanced a people may be, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is greater than all of that. So in your heart you cannot have khawf of that makhluk anymore. And that is the true understanding of Al-Adheem. If we look at Al-Adheem, it's mentioned in the Qur'an 9 times. And one of them, فَصَبِّحْ بِإِسْمِ رَبِّكَ الْعَظِيمِ. From the tafsir of this ayah, many of the ulama said that this is hukam. Why? Saying Subhana Rabbil Azim is an obligation in your salah. Because of this ayah. And in general, we find to make the praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala al-Adheem to be a hukam from this as well. Allahu la ilaha illa huwa Rabbul Arsh al-Adheem. Now here there is khilaf ulama whether al-Adheem is going back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of the Arsh itself, but even then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the Rabb of that Arsh. وَهُوَ الْعَلِيُّ الْعَظِيمِ. We see in Ayat al-Kursi that inshallah we read after every salah and before going to sleep. In the end of it, Ali al-Adheem. We find it 9 times in the Quran. One last point I will make for this. And my teacher, may Allah protect him, Abu Muhammad, he said this, and it's a beautiful point. He says, when we talk about Al-Adheem, the greatest, we should always review our deeds. Do you understand? Like when you make salah, when you make siyam, when you fast, when you give zakah, when you give sadaqah, when you make adhkar, when you read Qur'an, sometimes you feel, because of our ignorance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we feel like I've done so much. You know, sometimes you go to seek knowledge, and you travel to countries, and you go through some hardships and some sickness, or you go for Umrah or Hajj, and you get sick, and you feel like I did so much for Allah. Na'udhu billah. When you realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Adheem, it should make you realize that our deeds are nothing. Our weak effort is nothing. And that's why you should always have that fear in your heart, that Allah will not accept my deeds. They are not good enough for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He gave an example. And this example, it is to make us understand. If you go to a king, let's say the king of some kingdom, I don't want to mention any particular country, but let's say it's a Muslim king, maybe in the Middle East somewhere with a lot of oil. Let's say he invites you, the king, and he gives you the royal protocol, sends guards and people. And for the ulama that are on the haqq, when we read from the works of the Salaf and those who followed them like Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn al-Qayyim and others, they never wanted to visit the kings, they never wanted to sit with the kings, they never cared about this. But I'm just giving an example for us with our weakness. Let's say a king from one of those countries, the Middle East, has a lot of oil, a lot of money, invites you. You particularly, imagine you. And he gives you the royal treatment. Cars and security and everything, and even, let's say a good way. There is ulama with him, and there is, mashallah, beautiful palace, and he invites you. And let's say that they tell you, you should take a gift for this king. Right? Now imagine each one of us. from what you really have, what would you take? In anything you have, won't you feel that it's useless? Let's say you take a nice shimag or ghutra. Doesn't the king have much better ghutras than the one you have? Take a nice atar. Doesn't he have better atars than what you have? You take a cell phone. Don't you think he has hundreds of cell phones? You would think that this king is so rich and he has so much of everything that my gift will be nothing. So you will go with this fear that the king will laugh at your gift. Even if you take in the most valuable thing you have, that king has treasures and money and bank accounts. And this is our misconception, this is our weakness. That we make salah and we do something, we're like, oh, I did so much for Allah. Do you think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't have people making salah? Malaika making salah? Malaika that only make ruku', that only make sujood, that only make the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, their whole creation is just to do that. So what is our weak amal? So never get this pride in yourself that I've done so much, that I've done so much for Islam, I built these masajid, I did this. We have done nothing. It is only the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and that great kindness that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has towards His makhluk, that He accepts our amal. And that brings me to the next two names we will cover today. And they're related to what I'm saying. It's the transition. They are Ash-Shukur and Ash-Shākir. Ash-Shukur and Ash-Shākir. And these are also not understood. Because what does it mean, Shākir? Shakara, the fi'l, which is the root word, is to be or to show thankfulness. Now before we get into shukr, I want to be clear. There is a difference between hamd and shukr. Hamd is with the tongue, it is to praise. Shukr is with action. For example, if Brother Mukarram, he gives me a gift, and I tell him, Jazakallah khair. This is not shukr. This is just making dua for him. But if he gives me a gift, and I give him something better in return, or if I do something for him in action, this is shukr. When you want to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the tongue, we don't know of there being a dua saying shukran. For example, when you make ruku' and you get up, what do you say? Sami Allahu liman hamida. And what do you say after that? Rabbana wa lakal hamd. This is praise. Sami Allah, Allah listens to the one who praises Him. And then immediately after that, we praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But many of the people, nowadays they say, Rabbana wa lakal hamd wa shukr. And this is not from the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This word, lakal hamd wa shukr, is not from any hadith. Go look up the books of dua and find wa shukr. And that's why Shaykh Abū Yūsuf and other ulama, they said this is not from the sunnah. If somebody says it just out of dua, that's a different issue. But if somebody makes this a regular practice and thinks this is a sunnah, then it becomes a bid'ah in the religion. Many of the brothers I pray next to, you hear them. Rabbana wa lakal hamd wa shukr. Wa shukr is not from the sunnah. Rabbana wa lakal hamd hamdan kathiran tayyiban mubarakan fi mithla samawati wal ard, and so many other beautiful dua. Yes. Shukr is amal. Tayyib. So shukr is being thankful with action. When somebody does something good for you, and you are shakir to them, you are thankful to them. But how can this apply to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We can't do anything for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that does everything for us. Don't get it confused, brothers. When you make salah, when you give zakah, when you go for hajj, you're not doing a favor to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing a favor to you by allowing you to go for hajj, to give zakah, to fast, to make salah. That's a favor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what can we do for Allah? Allah can give you victory. We cannot give Allah victory. Allah can give you rizq. We cannot give Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's not in need of any rizq from anybody. So how is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shakir? And how is He shakur? Shakara is a fi'l. Shakir is a fa'il. Shakur is a mubalagha. So Shukur is even a stronger tense of that. Alhamdulillah, we don't have to figure these things out on our own. Some of the brothers, you see them talk and they've kind of like their own mindset. Don't do that. If you're the first one saying something in Islam, don't say it. Let the ulama of the past be your guide. And that's why those people of desires that want to make an American Islam and say the ulama in other countries don't understand, and those ulama of the past, they're outdated. These are people of misguidance. Because Islam is not something for you to figure out. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed the Qur'an, He has said the ahadith, and the ulama have established the usul al-fiqh and usul al-deen, and these. Now our time is to study and research and benefit from that. Don't be the first one to say anything. Trust me, in 14 and a half centuries of scholarly work in Islam, you are not the smartest one that came up on this. You're not going to figure out anything new. If a new issue comes up, we use those usul. And the earlier ulama, the sahaba and the salaf have said, to figure out the hukam, and that is the job of ulama. Not me and you. So when you go back with this name, Al-Qatada, the great tabi'i, Qatada, he's a great mufassir of Qur'an. He explains this. He says, when we look at Ash-Shākir and Ash-Shukur as the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Ash-Shākir, this means the one who is the most ready to appreciate the good deeds of the believers. SubhanAllah. We do something, it is not even to benefit Allah, it is to benefit ourselves. But Allah is the one who rewards, and the one who is most ready to reward. And Ash-Shukur is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't just reward, but He rewards abundantly, so much so that your deed was not deserving of it. Do you understand? We make a salah, our salah is weak. Our salah has no khushu'. Our ikhlas is weak, but Allah gives us rizq and Allah gives us rewards more than we are deserving. And that's why the dalil for that. We look at the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that if somebody just makes a niyyah. Let me give you an example before I get into the hadith. Let's say if my brother Umar asks me, like, Akhi, can you please bring me $10 at this time because I have to pay off this bill and you owe me $10, just bring me those $10 because I really need it at this time. And I tell him, no problem, Akhi. And that time comes and he owes it to somebody else and there's stress and there's tension and he's in a really bad situation, and I come to him and I'm like, how you doing, bro? He's like, where's my $10? And I tell him, oh, I intended it, but I just, bought myself some new shoes. Now, Umar, if he's not in stress, that's a different issue. But if he's in stress, he's going to be upset. He's going to be like, look, I was depending on you, and you said this. I said, but I intended to. Like, that doesn't matter now. I needed the money. But look at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How merciful is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You intend something, and you're not able to do it, Allah gives you a full reward. Did you deserve it? No. You didn't do the action. You intended to go for Hajj, you bought your ticket, you were doing everything, you got sick, you didn't go, you didn't perform Hajj. Allah gives you the full reward of Hajj. SubhanAllah. This is Ash-Shākir. This is the one who is always willing to give. Then the Prophet ﷺ in the same hadith told us that if you do it, then Allah will give you 10 times the reward. And another narration 10 times to 70. Another narration to 700 times. SubhanAllah, do you deserve that? If I do something as a favor to Brother Abdullah, and he does the same favor back to me, this is good. But if he does more than what I did, this is his ihsan. This is his being very good. But if I do something, if I give him $1, and at a later time, not in exchange for it, at a later time, he comes back and he gives me $700. Now this is amazing, because this is so much more than what I did. That means that he is somebody who's a shakur. Now if I do a deed, and it's a weak deed, not deserving of Al-Adheem, but then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives me 700 times the reward, this is Ash-Shakur. Not only is He the most willing to overlook our faults and accept our deeds, but to reward us for it, and to reward us for it more than we deserve. Al-Khattabi, the great scholar of Hadith and scholar of Islam, he said that this means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Shākir, and He accepts the smallest of deeds. The Prophet ﷺ said, fear an-nar, protect yourself from the fire, even if it's with a date stone. You know the stone of the date? After you eat the date? What use is a date stone? But even if it's something so small, give it in sadaqah. Do something with it. If it's $1, 50 cents, you got a quarter. Give it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah accepts the smallest of deeds. And then He says He's Ash-Shukur, that He rewards them in return with the greatest rewards. And then we look at the hadith in Sahih Muslim. When a man, he brought a she-camel, a female camel, to the Prophet ﷺ. And he said, I want to give this fi sabilillah, in the path of Allah. Rasulullah ﷺ told him, and this is in Sahih Muslim, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you 700 she-camels in Al-Jannah in its return. Now Al-Khattabi mentioned some amazing points here. One, that a she-camel of dunya is nothing compared to the she-camel of Jannah. The camel in dunya has limited life, it dies, it gets diseased, it gives milk, it doesn't give milk, sometimes it's sick, sometimes it's fine. But the camels of Jannah, or anything in Jannah, is everlasting. So even if it was 1 for 1, that would have been a great reward. But on top of that one, given in reward 700. And not just that, Al-Khattabi mentioned that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you something in Jannah, there is another great thing about it, which is what? That you are now guaranteed that you will enter Jannah. You know when you say Subhanallah, and you get a tree in Jannah, look at the beautiful thing. Don't just think, oh, a tree. But if you own a tree in Jannah, if Allah gave it to you, then Allah will fulfill His promise of giving it to you, means you will enter Jannah. What a beautiful reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is mentioned Ash-Shukur in the Qur'an 4 times. Inna Rabbana laghafurun shakur. And Ash-Shākir in the Qur'an 2 times. فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ شَاكِرٌ عَلِيمٌ. When we look at being a slave of Ash-Shākir and Ash-Shukur, Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah says that the haqq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon the insan is first, never look down at any small good deed. If you see a brother picking up something on the side of the street, don't be like, oh, what's that going to do? Or if you think that you have some small deed you can do for somebody, some good reward maybe you can open the door for a brother, maybe you can do something nice for somebody older than you, or somebody younger than you, something small like this. Don't think it's small, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Shākir. He will fulfill the haqq of accepting even the smallest of deeds. And never think that, oh, my salah is not good enough, so I'm just going to stop making salah. Oh, I always sin, so I'm just going to forget trying to be on the right path. No, always strive, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Shākir. And never hold back, the second thing. Never hold back, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Shakur. So when you want to give sadaqah, when you want to go for ilm, when you want to spend your life for the sake of Islam, don't hold back, because Allah will for sure give you in the dunya and akhirah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they sacrificed, but Allah made them kings. Khulafa, but in the terminology today, Allah made them leaders in dunya, opened up the world for them. But also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them so much more in the akhirah. So when you have money, don't be stingy with it. When you have some ability to help somebody, don't be stingy with it. Don't be from those people that are stingy trying to help others. If you have something that somebody needs, help them with it as best you can. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Shakur, He will give you so much more in return. Then Ibn al-Qayyim says, and the last point is that we should be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what does that mean? He says there's 5 aspects. 1, submission to the one that you are grateful of. Yani, when you are thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then submit yourself to your great Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you don't submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will never be Shākir. Second, to love. Ash-Shukr here is an action, but it is not an action just because you have to. It's because you love the one you're doing it for. You know, if somebody tells you, go do this, otherwise I'll kill you. You may do it, but you're not doing it with shukr. You're not doing it with love. Somebody does you a favor and you feel you have to return that favor and you're upset about it, and you're upset at them. Why did they invite me to their house? Now I gotta invite them to my house or whatever. That's not shukr. You gotta do it with love. Third, acknowledge the bounties. And here Ibn al-Qayyim gives a lot of detail which I'm skipping. One is to acknowledge the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. People always complain. How's life? Oh man, I gotta drive this way, I got laid off, I got this, oh my kids are like this, my dad's like this, my mom's like this. Complain, complain, complain. It's not shukr. Think of the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon you. Think how much Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. And there's very few. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about them. وَقَلِيلٌ مِّنْ عِبَادِهِ Ash-Shukur. There's very few from the ibad of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Ash-Shukur. But those that are, they're always praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you ask them, how are you? Even in the harshest of states, they praise Allah. They say, Alhamdulillah, everything is good. Everything is well. They think of all the good that Allah has given them. Fourth, that they make hamd of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That the shakur are those that are making hamd, that are doing good deeds, that are praising Allah. They are the ones that their tongues are moist with the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the last, they don't use what Allah has given them against the ahkam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Instead, they use what Allah has given them in action to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Allah has given you money and you want to be thankful, don't use that money for haram. Use that money for good. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you life and strength and sight and hearing, then don't use these bounties from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what Allah has made haram. Instead, use them. Use your sight to read Islamic books, to read the Qur'an, to look at that which is halal. Use your hands to help people, to write, to read, to strive in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to gain that reward. Use your ears not to listen to music, instead to listen to Qur'an, to listen to lectures, to listen to durus. Use that time to sit in the halaqat of ilm and increase your iman and your ilm and your understanding and your closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't use it against what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained. And alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. We'll end here for today inshallah. Continuing next week. Jazakumullahu khairan.
إلا تنصروه فقد نصره الله